Welcome friends, this is fourth part in this fifth module. Till now we have discussed about various aspects of current trends in supply chain management, like integration in supply chain management. We discussed both external integration, internal integration, what are the benefits, what are the barriers that are there for the integration. Then we went ahead and identified that integration is only sufficient for the companies to survive. It won't help the companies to perform above average. Okay, and if the companies want to perform above average, we could understand that they need restructuring, that is entire redesigning of the entire process. So how they can do that, we are discussed about value addition curve and all those things, points of differentiation and the entry of the customers into the supply chain. All those points were discussed in the previous parts. In this part, we will continue our discussion on the current trends with agile supply chains. What is agile supply chains? How it can help the supply chain management to perform still in a better way. All those aspects will be discussed in this agile supply chains. This PPT has been prepared by referring many textbooks, notes, videos from the internet. I owe a thank to them all, and it is exclusively used for the purpose of education, just to help students understand what supply chain management is. Let us understand what supply chains agility means. Okay, operating in a global environment has resulted in increased velocity of the change on all parts of the business. So the entire world is observing a great change every day, every fortnight. The world is changing, the expectations of the customers are changing, so that has brought in a great velocity of change on all parts of the business. For attaining a high level of supply chain performance, from firm not only has to ensure that supply chain configuration is aligned with the business strategy, but also that the supply chain is robust enough to handle the demand as well as the supply uncertainty. That is very, very important. Integration has to be there, restructuring has to be there. In spite of all those things, if a firm wants to achieve very high level of supply chain performance, it has to align its business strategy with supply chain configuration, and also see that supply chain is robust enough to handle demand as well as supply uncertainty. So uncertainty could be there in demand as well as supply, and the supply chain has to be so much robust in the sense so much strong. It should withstand any such fluctuations. That is very, very important. Progressive firms ensure that their supply chain design and operations reflect the three factors identified in the following figure. See, this is the figure wherein you can see that businesses, there are three aspects, three dimensions. uh, Say business strategy, demand uncertainty, and supply uncertainty. All these things are joined together while designing the supply chain and its operations. So they are not exclusive, they are all inclusive within the supply chain design. And when you include them during the design, you will have a better supply chain performance. This is the output. Okay, so this is what progressive firms think of. If a firm is not progressive enough, if it is a stagnant firm, then it won't think of bringing in demand uncertainty, supply uncertainty, and various business strategies while designing the supply chain. So progressive firms always think in advance. They go for a proactive version, not a reactive version. Okay, even before the problem occurs, they will be ready with the solution. That is what proactive version means. Firms that have configured their supply chain design and operations to handle high level demand uncertainty effectively are known as the responsive supply firms. See here, a responsive supply firm or a progressive supply firm see that they can configure their supply chain design and operations to handle high level of demand certainty. Okay, so then what else is required? That is not sufficient. What else is required? Firms that have configured their supply chain design and operations to handle high demand of high level of demand uncertainty. In addition to that, they also have got supply chain disruptions effectively under control, are known as agile supply chains. Along with your configuring the supply chain design and operations to handle high levels of demand and supply uncertainty, you also have the supply chain disruptions effectively under control. That is known as agile supply chain. That means you have the agility, you are flexible, supply chain disruptions are effectively controlled or effectively tamed. Okay, so the entire supply chain itself may get disrupted. It's not just the supply or the demand, the entire supply chain itself may get disrupted. You should be ready to respond to that. Our supply chain should be so flexible, should be so agile that we respond to the supply chain disruptions itself, not just the uh, demand or supply uncertainty. So such supply chains which can manage the supply chain disruptions very effectively, they are termed as agile supply chains. Supply chains for high demand uncertainty environment, wherein uh, demand is very uncertain to a very high extent. How how supply chains cope up with such environment? Let us see that here. The demand for several products categories in the fashion industry and high technology industry is inherently unpredictable. Fashion, by the time we advertise and by the time it comes to the market, the mood might have got changed. Even the technology, while one company is mulling over one particular technology, other company might have already introduced that and it may become obsolete within no time. That's why fashion industry, high technology industry, they are so unpredictable that demand for such several such products are very difficult to estimate or forecast. The garment industry in particular and soft goods industry in general fall into this category. A global garment supply chain involves three main activities: fabric production, garment manufacturing, and transportation. In fashion garment business, product life cycle is very short. It's in the order of just few months, and as a result, the bulk of the supply chain decisions are taken before the start of the season. So as a result, what the garment manufacturers do, they take the decision much before the start of the season, so that if they wait till the season, by the time season is over, they may not be able to bring their products into the market, and once that season is over, nobody will look at your design. That is the worst thing that can happen to garment industry. Many of the people are worried about that, especially this garment sellers, textile owners. They are mulling over that situation only. They are all worried about whatever the design we had brought last year for festival season. Entire March April was closed because of the COVID-19, and March April February March April May, they are the peak season of marriage festivals and other things, but unfortunately no takers were there. Again this year the same situation occurred. We are not able to sell the old stock, and that design, that fashion has become obsolete. We have got new stock, but even that will also become obsolete. How do we go, how can we survive? This is the question most of the garment seller in India are questioning. So that is the major problem for fashion garment business. Product life cycle is very, very short. Since the garment industry offers large variety and the product portfolio is changed every year, usually a firm is not able to predict likely demand for each cycle offered by for the coming season. You cannot predict what is going to happen in future. Multiple players are there. Worldwide multiple players are there. A fashion that is taking place, or the design that is very, very attractive, very catchy in New York may become very prominent in India, or anything that is very prominent in Delhi or any one rural place, that may become very catchy. Why? Few of the film actresses wear that, and all of a sudden that becomes very prominent. Any foreign guest come to India and they wear a particular design, and that becomes very popular. One movie becomes hit and the heroine or anybody wears a particular kind of dress, and that becomes very popular. And how long will it stay? Just about 3 months, maximum 6 months, at the most 1 year. That's all. So multiple players come into picture over here, and that's why it is very difficult to predict the demand for the coming season. What is going to happen? Which influential factor will play a role in deciding the next season's fashion design? It's very difficult to predict. In recent times, some firms have realized that even though forecasting before the start of the season is difficult, data obtained from initial sales observed in the early part of the season can help a firm in updating forecasts that are likely to have reasonably high forecast accuracy. What does that mean? Though the forecasting before the start of the season is difficult, data obtained from initial sales observed in the early part of the season can bring in a better forecast accuracy. Instead of suppose the fashion trend starts during say January, and you start planning for that during previous years, say July, August, and you plan everything almost 5 to 6 months you have planned, and by the time actual season begins, the design whatever you had done might have become useless, obsolete. Why? A new trend might have entered the garment industry, entered the mindset of the people. No takers for your product. In order to avoid that, what a good manager in the garment industry need to do, instead of planning it so early, even before the start of the season, you better let the season start, and you look at the trend what they want, take feedback from them, and then start manufacturing the garments as per the initial trends of the season. That will bring in a better forecast accuracy. That is the meaning of that. That will be more accurate. Wastage could be reduced. See, this is one of the studies wherein initial forecast and the actual sale of women's parkas were done, and you can see that it is totally scattered. Initial forecast and the total actual sales were to, it should have been along the 45-degree line. Whatever you forecast, that much must be the sale. If you forecast this much, that much must be the sale. All the points must be aligned along with this 45-degree line. But look at this particular graph. It is spread everywhere. This is not the good forecast. This is the sign of a very bad forecast. How to overcome this? That company planned for a new thinking. That is, instead of forecasting it too early, what they did, they went for a went for a forecast that was revised after observing 20% of the actual actual demand. Okay, after 20% of the actual sales were over, the early forecast was revised. As a result, what happened? The forecast error, it became like this. Look at it now. Same example, 45-degree line. When I draw a 45-degree line, you can see that all the forecasted and the actual sales, they are almost one and the same. They are almost one and the same. It's not too much of a difference. They are almost one and the same. This is why that's why it is very important that I need to think of something else. What is that? What was thought? Instead of forecasting it even before the season, you start with the production with minor forecast points and start with the production, release it to the market, not the full-fledged production, just about say 20%, 30% of the total production. Then once you get the uh, actual feedback on the product, then you start with the production. That will reduce the error to an extent of nearly 20%. Updated standard deviation of demand for the season is given as a correction factor of 0.1 to 0.4 and multiplied by initial standard deviation of the season. That means standard deviation gets reduced by nearly 90 to 90%. Up to 90% I can reduce the standard deviation. That's a huge advantage for the company. Speculative versus responsive supply chain. There are two different types of supply chains that comes in agile supply chains. One is speculative and another one is responsive. Speculative approach is totally speculative. We are predicting a guesswork. What may happen, and information is revealed at the end of the few first weeks of the season, and season may end within another few weeks. You have left with no choice but to continue with the product, which could lead you to loss or very very less profit. Hardly anybody has seen that such delayed feedback on the products has really helped any company to gain profit or garner higher profit. It's very difficult. So what we need to do is that uh, better go for a responsive supply chain. What is that? That divides the season into two components. One is the speculative time and the another one is the responsive time. The speculative part of the season is managed using long but efficient chain, using the speculative forecast available before the start of the season. It doesn't say that don't go for forecasting at all. Before the start of the season, you have to go with speculative forecasting. Demand for the later part, that means you divide that into two parts. The entire season, divide that into two parts. For the first part, you do the speculative forecasting. For the second part, you do the responsive forecasting. How? During the first half, you would have already got the responses from the customers. You would have tried to understand the mood of the customers. You would have gathered data on the expectations of the customers. That becomes a responsive supply chain. You are responding to a situation. That's why it is called as a responsive supply chain. It is not a speculative supply chain wherein I just speculated, predicted something based on some past data or something else which is not real and may be very much different from the actual data or the actual demand. In order to avoid such follies, in order to avoid such mistakes, a responsive supply chain is better. So divide the entire season into two parts. First part, carry on with the speculative supply chain. Second part, you take the feedback during the first part, pass it on to the manufacturing section, let them take the corrective action so that by the time it reaches the second half of the part, your new products are ready as per the requirements of the customers. That will avoid the forecast error, that will avoid the loss to the company, that will make the customers more satisfied. This is what is expected. See here, this is the speculative time. I have divided this entire T into two parts. Okay, first one is the speculative period, second one is the reactive period or responsive period, whatever it is. Now in this speculative time I have T1, T2, and in reactive time I have T3. The time period T1 is used for observing the initial sales of the pattern. So your sales as per the earlier product, it has begun here. Okay. Now during this time, from this part to this part, you will observe T1. You will observe what is happening over here. Okay, what is happening in this sales. You will observe that will go, that will pass by very quickly. You have to remember that. Okay, because it is the early part of the season, early part of the fashion. Then what you do, the time period T2 is used for manufacturing garments from fabric and transporting the same to market using faster modes of transport. T2 is the time from which or at which the manufacturing as per the new trends begin, and that will be carried to the third time category or T3. That is what a responsive supply chain or an agile supply chain does. Okay, so the forecasts are updated and orders are placed on a responsive manufacturing facility for manufacturing the required garments with an appropriate product mix for the likely demand in the period T3. For example, you might have seen what color of car is being sold in the market, what is on high demand, and accordingly you can go and inform the factory people this is what is happening in the market. So as a result, what you can do, now the company will decide whether to manufacture it in whole and keep the stock, or even this forecast could be blemished with some errors. Why should I believe that outrightly? Let me wait. That strategy can also be adopted. Sources of supply chain disruptions and consequences. How can a supply chain get disrupted, and what are the consequences? I was talking about, while defining the agile supply chain, I had told you very clearly that supply chain which can take care of such disruptions in the entire supply chain itself, that is called as agile supply chain. That's why sources of supply chain disruptions and the consequences becomes very critical in order to prepare or make a supply chain an agile one, or convert a normal supply chain into an agile supply chain. It is very important that we understand what are the various sources of the supply chain disruptions and consequences of them. Lengthy supply chains are increasingly proving to be source of concern. That is the first point. The supply chain length is very long, and it can disrupted at any stage. More and more players join the supply chain, chances of disruptions are also very high. Such disruptions may be caused due to, say, natural disasters such as cyclones or industrial accidents, or even the act of terrorism, or even health emergencies like this. See, pharma companies in India are dependent on raw material either from Europe or from China or from US, and many other countries are dependent on India for the generic medicine. India was fortunate enough to supply the COVID-19 vaccine to more than 80 countries, and all of them were vaccinated, the entire country got vaccinated because of the courtesy of India. No other country helped the entire world like what India has done. They helped, not even G7. They all got the first dose, but unfortunately, we had to face the second wave. And as a result, what happened? There was a huge rise in the demand within our country. And the pharma companies were struggling to cope up with the demand of the local market itself. And how can we supply it to some other country? And they were all courtesy call, they were not sold, they were all as a part of the responsibility, global responsibility. India had supplied them. In that sense, India already really showed that it's a Vishwa Guru. But unfortunately, there were so many enemies within India who did not support such things. Like that, we had a wonderful beginning, but unfortunately, at a later stage, we got the problem. And now, all those countries who have got the first dose, look at the problem. No other country is helping them. They are looking towards India. Once the Indian citizens are vaccinated, definitely India will start supplying to them. All these things happened. Why? Because of the health emergency. It's a disruption in the supply chain, right? It's totally disruption in the supply chain. And now the other countries, if they start obstructing the raw material, how can we produce? They can't. And it was welcomed by G7 countries that this vaccine IPR is kept out of that ambit. Vaccine for especially COVIDs are kept out of IPR ambit. Because it won't reach the poor. It will remain with the rich countries. That's all. Not avoid that, it has to be left out of the IPR control. So this is one such emergency. Act of terrorism may affect the entire supply chain because of one attack during at Mumbai. The entire city had come to a halt for almost 1 week. There were no activities done. So that will disrupt the supply chain. So firms, when trying to identify the disruptions that may affect their operations, generally focus on the risks that they can see. The supply chain function within that firm will also tend to concentrate on risks that it will be held accountable for. It's not only the parent company which has to foresee such risks, okay, and they have to identify, come up with a solution. At the same time, they have to see all the players of the supply chain also adopt the same procedure in order to overcome the problems, because they are interdependent. In my previous sessions, I have told you very clearly about the importance of interdependence. All the companies need to be interdependent on each other. It's not that one should have an ego and should think highly of themselves. That's wrong. Okay, that has to be proper interdependence. See where all it can occur, all these failure modes. See, it can be in the supply, it can be in the transportation, it can be at the facility, it can be at the freight, it can be at the communication or the demand. Any of these things can occur, and all of them will result in the delay or unavailability. See, everywhere that is the problem. It won't reach the customer properly. If customer is unhappy about the product, he will switch over to someone else, and we are the losers. Customers are not the losers. Manufacturers will be the losers. Why? They did not deliver on time. When customers expected, it was not available to them, so customers switched over. That's all. So this is the major source of disruption. And what are the consequences? That also we have discussed. It could be delay or unavailability, which will result in the loss of the market. Okay, so we have to take care of this very clearly so that agile supply chain can be established. Methodologies to disrupt handling. How to handle these disruptions. Handling disruptions in the supply chain requires the combination of two different kinds of action. The first one is physical backup or redundancies. Inventory. Have a safety stock. That is the conventional method of overcoming the disruptions. If something goes wrong, my show should run. Have a backup. Be ready with a plan B. That's all. So, but the disadvantages of such safety stocks are that you cannot predict what is going to happen in future. Second thing, how long such disruption will occur, that is also not predictable. And the trend, what will happen after the disruption, unpredictable. And you need large warehouses, maintenance, that will increase the cost. So because of all these things, physical backup or redundancies they are not recommended, even though they cater to the increasing demand, sudden rise in the demand, though they cater to the need of such things, such follies, or the suppliers inefficiency to supply raw materials. In all such cases, this physical backup will help. Knowledge backup with standardization of process for easy replication. This is another important way to handle the disruption. Okay, physical backup and all those things you need to have to the maximum, or whatever the minimum extent possible, most convenient way we have to have that. Okay, in addition to that, knowledge backup. What is that? I should be able to start one more location in case of emergency. Is it really possible? It has to be done. That's all. See, we cannot say that because of one pandemic I will close down and sleep at home happily. No, it's not possible. Of course, it is up to the company. The companies must be resilient enough in the face of shocks, or whatever may be the situation. It should be able to replicate the knowledge of its process when situation demands, and setting up of operations at a different location where it is safer. Okay, and I may have to shift the entire thing. Many times it so happens that because of the continuous floods, many families will be shifted permanently to uh, city areas. Okay, the city of Bagalkot has been built like that only. New Navanagar has been built because of the Almaty Dam's backwater. Temporary shelters will be built in case of cyclones, typhoons, tornadoes. We have seen that they are not permanent. People will be evacuated from the risk area or danger area, and they will be kept in such temporary shelters. They are not permanent. After that, they will be dismantled. Concept of work from home. This is another important thing to handle disruption. All of a sudden, the entire world started facing the difficulty. What to do? Work from home concept was there in software companies, but not to a great extent. Nowadays the entire company has closed down their rented building. They have vacated their rented building, and they have asked the employees to register whether they want work from home facility for an year, 2 years, or 5 years, or permanently. That is the kind of offer they have given. And believe it or not, many of them have opted for permanent work from home. They have gained so many advantages. One of the studies in America have shown that people are reluctant to go back to office even after the permission is there to travel from home to office. People are not really interested in going back to office. Reason: petrol expenses. First thing, it is rising too high. Why should I spend unnecessarily? That is one of the thinking. Okay, so another, because of that, even though it was, to start with, it was not welcome, but later people have started welcoming, adapting, and following that without fail. Okay, So that is the another way to handle the disruption. Next one is reverse supply chain. Okay, what is this reverse supply chain? Reverse supply chain is the series of activities required to retrieve a used product from customer end and either to dispose it or reuse it. Okay, 4 R's. Now some of them call 3 R's, some of them call it as 4 R's, some of them call it as 5 R's. Normally reuse, reduce, recycle, these are the 3 R's. Reuse, reduce, recycle, repurpose, that is the fourth R. Like that, the people keep on adding one more R's whenever it comes to waste management system. Okay. In some cases, companies can bring forced to or being forced to set up reverse supply chains because of the environment regulations and customer pressure. Many a times it so happens that, for example, see battery has to be bought back by the battery manufacturer. You cannot say that I do not want to give. If you can have it at home, it's a different thing, but normally they will ask for the old battery because the case can be reused. It's a plastic case can be reused. Reusing of the battery Reuse of the battery case will reduce the cost of the battery by nearly 20%. That helps the battery manufacturers to cut down their cost. Okay, so this is a mandatory thing now for the battery sellers to collect the old batteries. In some ways, reverse logistics in the supply chain strategy is the prime green opportunity of the organization. Only 18% of the computers were recycled in 2007, and it has risen up to 40% in 2013. Computers, or in other terms e-waste, it has become a very big headache. Who will be having desktops with CRT tube nowadays? They are all slim with LED display. But at one point of time, 10 years ago, we were having a bulgy monitor with CRT tube. But nowadays they have changed. Okay, but still old computers disposing, maintaining, that is the biggest challenge now. For example, the company designs a product layout according to the manufacturing decisions, followed by recycling and reconditioning. While designing the product itself, they will decide about the recycle and reconditioning. That is another great initiative taken by many of the manufacturers. Bosch is a beautiful example. When it should be reconditioned, they have already set a sensor. While manufacturing itself, they will set up a sensor which will give signal when it should be reconditioned. Look at the technology. Okay, in that way, they are trying to bring in reverse supply chain. This is the flow chart of reverse supply chain. See here, on the top we have the forward logistics. Okay, see, it starts with the raw material, then gets converted into parts, that get converted into sub assembly, and all these sub assemblies will be assembled together as parts, and then a final product is ready and it goes to distribution, and from distributor it reaches the customer or the consumer. Okay, now consumer says he is not happy with the product, or after some times he wants to return it, or the company mandatorily takes the product back from the customer, or whatever it is. Then the reverse logistics start. So what are the various ways of reverse logistics? First is reuse it. Okay, and repair. If you cannot reuse it, do the repair and try to give it back to customer. If you cannot repair it, you have to remanufacture. That means if the AC is entirely wrong, you have to remove the AC from the car, replace it with new AC, and hand it over to customer. So that is remanufacturing of few parts. If that is also not possible, recycle it and give the entire car to the manufacturer. Many a times it has happened. Laptop was replaced. One of my friend's laptop, right from the first month itself, it started giving him trouble. The screen went off, the keyboard stopped working. He got that repaired 3 times, and everything was within the warranty period of 6 months. And even after 3 repairs, it was not proper. And finally he wrote to the help desk, are you going to replace it or not? Finally he got the replacement for the replacement with new laptop. So that's what it has to happen. So many a times it so happens. So they are all the part of the reverse logistics. Okay, so it could be reuse or repair or remanufacture. If nothing could be done, go for recycle. Okay, now we will discuss about supply chain, how a supply chain is designed to carry out the following key processes. First one is the product acquisition, accumulating the used product from the user by the reseller or the manufacturer because some manufacturing defect or some other reason. It is basically considered as a company's growth strategy. Let me take the example of batteries. Okay, normally when we want to replace our old battery, the battery seller will ask for the old battery, and even he pays for that. Some amount is paid. On what basis do they pay? They pay it on the basis of uh, say 10%, 20%, like that. Why do they need? The case is reusable. That is very, very important, and that will save the company from uh, remanufacturing that case. The case can be reused. Better take it from the old batteries. Either you can recycle it or you can use it as it is. Both are quite possible. So that is why some of the products will make it mandatory for the reseller to, or mandatory for the seller to take the old kits from them. Another one is that they will say till 5 years you use my product. At the end of 5 years you return it to the seller, we will give you the brand new product. It's an attraction. So what is the advantage? The customer will remain with the same company. That is the first advantage. Second advantage is that my products are still there in the market. There are certain buyers. So charge something extra, not too much of extra. Charge a little bit more. So 30% more, 40% more, or give 30% discount, 40% discount. That is more attractive. Reverse logistics, shipping of products from their final destination for auditing, sorting, and disposition. That is the another important process. So taking it from the customer and bringing it back to the manufacturer, that involves auditing, sorting, and disposition. Now you have to bring it from them. Our entire thing can be used from that particular part. We have to see. If I purchase, if I take a mobile from the customer, is entire mobile usable for the production of further mobiles? I have to see whether PCB is there or the keyboards are okay. So as a result, what will happen? Some of them can be reused, some of them has to be disposed. All those things have to be planned during reverse logistics. Inspection and disposition, examining the condition of the product returned along with making the most profitable decision for reusing it in the one or the other way. That's what I was talking about. See, when you bring it in and when you see that 30% can be reused, in remaining 70%, what can be done? Should you just dump it, or can it be used for some other purpose, or can that be converted into some other product? Can I add value to that waste and convert that into some other product, making best out of waste, something like that? Can I convert that waste into an antique piece, a show piece? These are all the things that the inspection and the disposition team need to think of. The fourth process is remanufacture or refurnishing, returning the product to its original source from where it was ordered in the very first place along with the specification. That is, we will return it to the manufacturer. This is done basically when there is a manufacturing or furnishing defect in the goods. See, when you say that you are returning it to the original manufacturer, either the product must have some manufacturing defect in it, and you are expecting a new product to be replaced. Okay, the old product to be replaced by the new product, or either the manufacturing defect or the uh, furnishing defect or something must be there. Many a times you would have seen old camera being told as refurnished while our online shopping, and the prices will be just about 60% of the original product. That is the advantage, right? So many a times we feel that such refurnished products will be beneficial. The last process is marketing. How to market this secondary product? In many countries there are established secondary sales market. For example, see, for Maruti we have True Value cars. It's an established secondary sales market. People go there, purchase the vehicle which is refurnished, even the warranty is given. While there are few private players who do not give you any such guarantees, okay, but they have old cars serviced to some extent, not on a guaranteed basis, but you can get that at a cheaper rate. Both are possible. Now, uh, after the old product is taken back, how to market that? That is the fifth process. So in reverse supply chain, all these points will come into picture. It could be product acquisition, or it could be reverse logistics, or it could be inspection and disposition, or remanufacturing or refurnishing, and finally the marketing. All the 5 points are equally important in reverse supply chain. It is not that I just take the product, but I should also see that it is sent back properly. Why reverse supply chain? Why is it so important in agile supply chain? Why reverse supply chain must be a part of the agile supply chain? India generates about 3 million tons of e-waste annually and ranks third among e-waste producing countries after China and US. And only 17.4% was recycled by 2018. Later, India has come up with a wonderful idea. Professor Vasudevan Rajagopalan, he has come up with a wonderful idea wherein plastic can be used as a substitute, not an entire substitute, as an addition, as an additive to the bitumen tar laying, bitumen road laying, I mean to say. While constructing road using bitumen, you add 10 to 30% of the plastic waste. What is the advantage? The cost reduces, plastic gets reused in some other way, okay, reduces the burden on landfill, and most importantly, the road is stronger than just the bitumen roads. Potholes, which result in nearly 10% of the accidents in India, that gets avoided or reduced at least, because potholes are very difficult to get formed in such roads which contain 10 to 30% of plastic. Cracks will not occur. Professor Vasudevan has proven all these things. Okay, even after 5 years after the construction, what he constructed by 2015-16, even those roads are intact. And that's why from 2015, Indian government decided to go for 10 to addition of 10 to 30% plastics in construction of roads. And till now it is observed that till 2020 1 lakh kilometer has been constructed under this formula. That includes Jammu Kashmir National Highway, Delhi Mathura Expressway. All those things, all those roads have been constructed using this concept. This is how we are uh, bringing in the reverse supply chain. Plastic takes more than 400 years to degrade, and it is observed that only 12% has been incinerated, and incineration also causes air pollution. That also we need to be very careful. Automobiles are the most recycled because 80% of the from a vehicle can be recycled, and that's why in India the central government came up with a this scrap policy, new scrap policy. According to new scrap policy, after 15 years you can directly dump that in the scrap yard. It can be scrapped easily. Nowadays scrapping itself is very difficult, it's not that easy. In western countries there will be scrap yard where the vehicles are just dumped in the scrap yard, and the companies go to such scrap yard and take the scrap, and nearly 80% of that can be reused. Okay, that remaining thing which cannot be recycled are termed as auto shredder residue, which includes ferrous, non-ferrous metal pieces, small pieces, dirt, glass, fabric, paper, wood, rubber, plastic, which are in very small pieces. Normally people do not prefer that because cleaning them itself will be very difficult. They are termed as ASR or auto shredder residues. Okay, so this is how India has adopted reverse supply chain. The world is moving towards supply chain, and why supply chain is very, very essential. Okay, let us take a beautiful case study of Japanese Tokyo 2020 Olympic medals. Okay, in these years between 2017 and 19, 100% of the metals required to manufacture the approximately 5,000 gold, silver, and bronze medals have been extracted from small electronic devices contributed by people of Japan uh, towards this noble cause, I can say. Tokyo Olympics was scheduled in 2020. They need nearly 5,000 gold, silver, and bronze medals, and that's a huge amount for any country. So how to overcome this? They came up with a wonderful plan. They just asked its people to donate their old mobiles. Okay, and nearly what happened, 78,985 tons were collected by municipal authorities across Japan. Used small electronic devices including mobile phones. Approximately 6.21 million used mobile phones were collected by NTT Docomo shops across Japan. NTT Docomo, that's the number one telecom company in Japan. Okay, uh, voluntarily, and it's free of cost. They were not paid anything. It's a national cause, that's all. And whenever national cause comes into picture, Japanese stand on top. Okay, and they showed it to the entire world how they can save money, reuse, recycle everything. They have given the best example. Gold, such in that way, the total approximate collected gold was 32 kgs of gold and 3,500 kgs of silver and 2,200 kgs of bronze approximately. Okay, you can just imagine how much it would have cost if they had brought in the original gold, silver and bronze into this particular thing. By taking care of reverse supply chain, they saved huge amount to the entire country. This is what is necessary, and this is the beauty of reverse supply chain, and how they can improve the agility in the supply chain by bringing in such reverse supply chain into this ambit. Okay, thank you. So till now we discussed about agile and how we can avoid the disruptions in the entire supply chain network, and how reverse supply chain helps a lot. All these points have been discussed in this part. Thank you.